In a moment, the generic news with R.D. Rosen.
He's tough. He's gentle. When he works hard.
Fire? Fire. Let's go.
When he plays hard. He's a reporter. He's an anchorman.
Scandal.
He's a co-anchorman. He's an investigative team. He's a medical editor. He's a sportscaster.
Baseball.
He's a consumer reporter. He's a meteorologist. He's a tree surgeon. He's R.D. Rosen. He cares about the little person.
It's gonna be all right.
But he's not afraid to go after the big shots. He's in touch with the city that's in touch with him. He doesn't wait for the news, and the news doesn't wait for anyone. So he goes where the news is.
Where's the fire?
And he knows where the news goes. He's as fresh as today's news, and as bright as the dawn of a new tomorrow. He's R.D. Rosen. He's a man for the kind of times that demand a man like him. And these are the kind of times that demand a man who's in touch with these kind of times. He's a who, what, where, when, and why kind of guy.
No, the answer's no. Rip it and read it.
And that's no news to those who know what kind of man it takes to make news, and to keep it that way.
Good evening. Here's the news.
And now, the generic news with R.D. Rosen, the newscast that gives you all the news you need to know, no matter when you watch it. It's news that's as fresh tomorrow, next week, even next year, as the day it was reported. The generic news. It's the only newscast you'll ever need to watch.
Good evening. I'm R.D. Rosen.
And I'm R.D. Rosen.
Top story tonight, scandal. State Senator Julius Babbage was indicted today. The charge, bribery and extortion. Our political reporter, R.D. Rosen, is standing by live at the State House. Let's go to him now.
State House? I'm sorry, I thought you said steakhouse.
Right. Dick?
Rich, behind the expected Babbage indictment is a complex story that our political analyst, R.D. Rosen, has been looking into. In tonight's generic news analysis, he untangles some of the threads. Today's developments were not unexpected, but they still send shockwaves rippling through this quiet community.
It has the potential to tear apart the fabric of our society.
Others, however, are not so sure.
Well, I think it has far-reaching implications for the fabric of society, but I don't think it has the potential to tear it apart.
Oh, I think it has a potential to tear it apart. I just don't think it has far-reaching implications.
Even so, the final committee report is an imposing set of documents that contains one rather startling disclosure.
It was a political hot potato. And frankly, we got caught with our pants down.
A case of fiscal belt-tightening, then.
We played it close to the vest.
And now you're waiting for the other shoe to drop?
You bet your boots.
Let's take a look at the figures. In any case, the proposal is expected to touch off a heated debate unless, as this diagram shows, a coalition of liberal Republicans and conservative Democrats successfully blocks the benzene rider to the Potomac commissary bill. Which is not to say that, as one political pundit has phrased it, these repercussions will not be felt in a handful of sectors in the society. Not a few of the people we spoke to in those sectors disagreed.
If anything, it will extend our parameters.
Sure, I've got a quarter past.
And then you go all the way down there, and then you come to 1, 2, 3, about 4 set of lights.
What does it all mean? Well, the politicians remain cautiously optimistic, but the mood on the street here is at best guardedly sanguine. And the numbers, they only tell part of the story. What will tell the whole story? This reporter's assessment is time and only time will tell. Meanwhile, one thing remains certain. I'm R.D. Rosen. Elsewhere on the local front, there's some happier news. Fred Brackett's home from the hospital tonight. Fred's the heroic firefighter critically injured last week while saving 37 orphans in the line of duty. While in the hospital, he discovered to his amazement that his nurse there was actually his twin sister Elaine, whom he hadn't seen in more than 50 years. However, the reunited siblings weren't the only ones celebrating.
They were joined by the landlord's dog, Randolph, who just turned a big 100 today. And would you believe it? Sis took one look at the pooch and recognized him as the long-lost pet who ran away from her 82 years ago in her native Ireland. As for Fred's hospital bills, well, the $2 million Fred won in yesterday's state lottery should come in pretty handy. Back to you, Dick.
Thanks, Rick. Turning now to the international front. British Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher arrived today. Elsewhere, the Pope deplaned, President Reagan disembarked, and Mexican President Jose Lopez Portillo arrived. Later, the Pope embarked, President Reagan disembarked again, and then the Pope disembarked. Then the Queen arrived, just ahead of the Pope. Prince Charles and Lady Di arrived unexpectedly, just ahead of the Queen. Finally, President Reagan took off, Mrs. Thatcher touched down, and then President Reagan landed. Cuba's Fidel Castro came on foot. Well, now, here's a story for the fashion-conscious.
In the what will they think of next category.
Just when we'd all gotten used to seeing pleated pants again.
American males have been positively swept up in a new fad. It's called the head coat. We're seeing more and more of these garments fancifully worn over the head in public. Here's a poor guy who was unable to afford one. Don't ask me what to make of it, but we do know this. The head coat craze is so popular, it's even attracting the attention of several law enforcement officials.
The generic news will be right back, but first let's look at some of the stories we'll be covering for you when we return. A remarkable new advance in veterinary medicine and a sizzling expose from our crack investigative team.
I'm gonna have to stay up for that one. Now, let's look at the stories we've already covered for you. The Babbage indictment, Fred Brackett's home, heads of state in a hurry, and head coats.
Now, here are the stories we'll be covering for you after the stories we'll be covering for you. Our special in-depth series and a review of the new movie that everybody's talking about.
But first, let's recap what we've done so far.
We've previewed the stories we'll be covering for you when we come back.
Reviewed the stories we've already covered for you.
And
looked ahead at the stories we'll be covering for you after the stories we'll be covering for you when we return.
If you're watching this newscast, I know you're wondering how you too can be a television reporter, earning literally millions of dollars a year. You're probably wondering how you can do a stand-up like this one.
The House of Representatives.
It looks easy, and it is. But you need professional training, the kind you can get only at the famous TV Reporter School of Nyack, New York. Yes, in 2 exhilarating weeks, you'll not only learn how to do a stand-up like the one we just showed you, but we'll also teach you the classic sitting-down stand-up. Just watch.
By the events of the past few days.
And, of course, the less frequently used but dramatic lying-down stand-up.
It's anybody's guess.
You'd be amazed, wouldn't you, to learn all of this in just 2 weeks. But wait, there's more. Under the guidance of our expert coaches, we'll teach you to do the walking stand-up in a vacant lot and casually kick an empty can or bottle as you walk. But the famous TV Reporter School of Nyack, New York doesn't stop there. We'll teach you the toughest challenge of all, the eating stand-up. Here's just one of our recent graduates.
That's really good.
That is good pizza, isn't it? But pizza's not the only thing you'll enjoy about your new career in television journalism. When you enroll in the famous TV Reporter School of Nyack, New York, you'll learn to pay your dues, use the news, choose your views, abuse your crews, and much, much more. Please write or call today.